My father, despite everything my mother ever said, was always up for an adventure and rarely ever said no. Even when our requests involved my brother and I carrying home fluffy yellow chicks on our lap of the bench seat of his little white pickup truck. Once we got home with our bag of feed, I'm sure now that my dad must have quickly realized he didn't know the slightest thing about raising chickens. In the same way he probably felt the first night he was alone, with 2 kids under 5 after my mom moved out. But we didn't know that he didn't know, and we didn't care, because we had tiny fluffy chickens and a rooster. That we wouldn't find out was a rooster until weeks later, when the animals started to grow into teen versions of themselves, and we all learned they needed more space to grow and thrive than the laundry basket with blankets in it that had been their first home away from home. So my dad did what enterprising young men do, I suppose, and built them a chicken coop in our backyard, and the rooster that we hadn't known was a rooster began crowing at every and any hour of the day. My brother and I were so happy to come home after a week at our mother's house, where we definitely were never taken on trips to the local feed bin, and see how big our chickens and 1 rooster had grown. We named them and took care of them without realizing that, of course, our dad with the rough hands and soft voice was the actual caregiver. The coop he had built seemed to be perfect until the afternoon we arrived home to find feathers everywhere and our chickens nowhere. My brother and I cried even though we had reached a stage in our young lives when it was no longer acceptable to openly cry. We bawled and he held us and we damned those damn neighborhood dogs. And we wished we had built a safer coop to protect our chickens and 1 rooster.